Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you Tuesday, February the 22nd. The year is 2022. Let's talk trading. Price part 12. There's a lot of twos on this screen today. Now, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. Okay, we've been talking a lot about price this month. In fact, that's the main thing we've been talking about, because that's usually price is what's going to determine if we have a profit or loss when we exit. That and where we enter, of course. And I mentioned that I've been working on a few things, so I rather than keep you in suspense any longer, I'm going to show you a couple of things. I mentioned about price covering. I think I probably mentioned this sometime last month too, but I thought I'd share some of the analysis with you and how I use it. I'll let you know I was in a trade here and I failed to take profit, and you see what happened. Well, then I bought in a couple of times. I let this candle close, and then I bought in right near the almost like the last minute. And the reason being is because I know how many times price likes to cover on M30. So right here we've got the high of this candle is greater than the top of this one, and you can see that the low here was less than the previous bottom. It covered. This happens about 50% of the time. The other thing you might notice is just looking at the charts, don't even think about the statistics. You can see here this one, it pretty much hit the midpoint. And you can see this one's pretty much gone through the midpoint. And so just knowing those two little facts, that it's got a high percentage or basically a coin flip almost to cover, but to actually come back to the 50% level or a little bit more, that's got a pretty high chance too, just looking at the chart here. And there's one other thing that I used in my favor, and that was the frequency distribution of the indicator 2 that I've been playing with. And I knew that, once again, based on the statistics, that if the price on M30 is usually going to close within 2 to 3 pips of the M30 indicator 2, and if it so looking at where it was, it had to basically cover the candle. So combining all those things together, I pretty much stayed in this trade, picked up a few more pips coming on the way back up, and then actually got out of that trade with a pip profit or so. Oh, and somebody had asked me out on YouTube about brokers. I don't like to put that stuff out publicly, but if you send an email my way, I will happily let you know which broker I use, because hey, way back when I first started in FOREX, and I was trading with EFX Group, and when I found out there was no such thing really as a fixed spread broker, got me in a lot of trouble on some trading forums. So if I would have known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it, or if I did, I would have done it a slight bit differently. So not that I'm worried about getting in trouble on trading forums, but hopefully you live and you learn. So right here, this candle's coming down hard. We've got about 5 minutes before the bar ends. Personally, I'm probably going to look to go long here. Actually, I'm kind of kicking myself for not going short, because once again, that cover pretty much had to happen. So this one's almost covered. This one's covered almost. A little bit more and it'll cover. This one's covered. You can see this one's covered. This one didn't get covered. This one technically didn't get covered. This one didn't get covered. So what I look for is if you see a bunch of uncovered candles, what that means is price is quote unquote trending. But when you see covered candles or halfway covered candles, what that usually means is price is ranging. So just another way to look at price analysis. And I wrote a little indicator here, multimeter, let me know where price is getting covered and where it hasn't. So that's pretty much the cover part that I was alluding to. Now the next little trick I've been playing with is something old and something kind of new. The turn trade. So I wrote a couple of indicators here for the 2022 donationals, kink zones and turn zones. Turn is when price flip-flops the color. So green to red or red to green. Now you might wonder, why isn't there a line there? Well, the screen can get pretty busy on these, and so I added a couple of wiggles in there, such as only show not crisscrossed, but if we turn that off, and then I could also only show near, so we turn that off. And then I also put in an extra line style. So if it's crossed, you get a dot. If it's uncrossed, it comes out solid. So you can see right there, there was a bunch of turns, but price turned and went through those levels. So that's the reason I turn it off. But sometimes when you want to go back and analyze, you might want to see all those lines. But for these purposes, I only want to show not crisscross. I want to see where price has a tendency or may have a tendency to go, or where it's getting boxed in, quote unquote, ranging. And the other thing is I set up a bar range. Normally I say, just tell me how many bars, but then I realize sometimes you might want to go all the way back to the day, or you might want to go back to the previous day or the last 5 days. So you get to tell the indicator how far back to go based on days rather than just bars. So that's the turn zone. So you can see down, well, if I turn off this other indicator, you can see it, the open range plot. We turn that off. You can see we had a turn right here. And what did price do? It came down close, and it's now bounced since we've been talking. So you see this, and once again, this number was probably, let's see, it was all the way down to 45, so that's 7. So this number was over 10. Once again, play the reversion to the mean, and that would have been a nice little trade right there. So that explains the turn. So you can see here price turned here, and then price turned here. Now, I have another one called the kink. And this is one of those ones, it's kind of interesting, but it's basically when you get a couple of candle colors, a couple of candles with the same candle color in a row where this, you see this upper wick, lower wick kind of thing happening. That's kind of what it looks for, but not 100%. It just looks for it to be the same. So we call that a kink. And a lot of times price wants to go back and take out those kinks. And that pretty much has the same type of inputs. Whoops, why did it show me turn zones? I want to do kink zones. So we can show all the kinks that have happened today. Oh, and by the way, if you put in one or more, then it'll override this area, those switches there. So you can see some of the kinks here that have occurred, and how price, for whatever reason, likes to come and take out those kinks. Why, I don't know. It was something I saw on another forum, I was kind of interested. It's like, that seems interesting. So once again, only show not crisscross true. And when I do that, so kind of gives me some targets to look forward to. So we're at the top of the hour, and you can see we're 5 pips away from indicator 2, which is telling me, and you see how it turned green, it's telling me to start to look for a long. So we've got this uncovered candle right here, and it just barely missed it. But let's see if it comes back down, hits the turn zone, and comes back the other way. Some people might call this a zero line, or I think sometimes we called it a dragon line. I just call it, it's just it's the turn trade. It's where price turned. So you can see we put in a couple of lower wicks here. And one other thing on price, kind of interesting. I was watching another trader's video, and he was talking about wicks, and I think you guys know I'm big in the wick zones. Well, he was talking about pin bars, which is something that I've never really been I guess, a follower of the pin bar method, but something he said kind of made sense to me. And so you can see price got rejected. Boom, pushed it way up here. And you see what happened? Price came back down to this level, and it got pushed back up. So it's one of those things where we used to talk about looking left. So at this particular time, if you look left, it was like it pushed up all the way to here. So you see it came down, and then maybe right here. I don't even know how fast this move it was before I was awake, but it came down and then pushed back up. But when I was awake, I think it was somewhere in this candle right here. When I started trading this morning, I just looked at it, and I was on my phone, and I saw this big pin bar, and it was like, hey, I looked here, it's like price should go up, and sure enough it did. So I popped it for some pips, just analyzing the chart, with no indicators, because I was using my phone at the time. So anyway, once again, the turn and the kink, a couple of things I've been working with, along with the covering, and I'm mixing the covering with the indicator 2 to give me an entry. So I don't just look at the turn by itself. I don't look at just indicator 2 by itself. I look this or the cover. I look to see, what's the chance this is going to cover. Chances are also on this indicator 2, you can see here most of the time the M30 candle touches indicator 2. So once again, I was in this trade here from this level, and it reversed on me about 15 pips, but it opened here. Indicator 2 at the time I think was somewhere around here, because this is dynamic, so it's going to move as price moves. But it was like, I think price is going to go back and take out that indicator 2 and IND 2 right there. And if you wonder why it's called IND 2 for the new people, indicator 1 didn't work, but indicator 2 seemed to work. So the name just stuck because I didn't know what to call it at the time. I could probably call it mean reversion something, but indicator 2, that's the name stuck. So fellow traders, if you have any questions, post them in the comments, or either in the YouTube or on the Facebook over on Crestlick, and I'll try to answer them. And you can see we're right at the psychological 50 level too. And we got down into the 40s, which was the launch pad. So a lot of reasons for me to go long in this area. So fellow traders, just remember, once you're at your trading terminal, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. This is the Rumpled One, over and out.